Well, it's been a couple of weeks since the announcement of Pokemon Legends ZA, and boy, what an announcement it was! Now that we've had some time to fully digest and look back at some previous installments in the franchise, I thought I would compile and discuss some speculations for what this game might have in store for us. My name is Zion Zinzi. I'm a shiny hunter mostly, but still an overall Pokemon fan, so I wanted to share my thoughts on Legends ZA. So with introductions out of the way, let's get right into it. Firstly, I just want to say that like most people, I did not see this coming. But with the hidden portion on the Paldea map, Roaring Moon's similarity to Mega Salamence, and Clive's hair making the shape of the Team Flare logo, I guess we should have seen this coming. Anyways, we've got a lot to unpack between the trailer, the title card, hints from previous games, and general speculation. The first and most important thing we'll touch on is the title card, since it's the one solid thing we have to look at that actually applies to the game's release regarding this new announcement. The title itself, Legends ZA, obviously establishes the Legends game as a series, so it's safe to say we could receive more Legends titles in the future. More on that later. Another obvious note is the Z, denoting that we will of course be seeing more of Zygarde. But what is not immediately obvious is that if you zoom in on the hyphen, you may notice a small sliver of red and blue, the colors of Yveltal and Xerneas respectively. A hyphen is typically used to combine two words together, so to that point it could represent a connection of the three legendary Pokemon, possibly in the shape of new forms, which some people have already made concepts for, although it's most likely just due to the fact that this is formulaic at this point for the legendaries to have new forms. These fan ideas have taken the shape of the two legendaries either fusing with Zygarde somehow, such as how Necrozma or Kyurem fuse, or the legendaries receiving complete forms, similarly to how Palkia and Dialga received origin forms like Giratina in Legends Arceus. The hyphen, however, is more likely to symbolize a connection to the A, so let's dive into what the A is symbolic of. Obviously, Z and A are AZ backwards, AZ of course being the king that used the ultimate weapon 3,000 years prior to the events of X and Y. People are saying there is some resemblance of the A to the ultimate weapon, in both color and design, so perhaps we will get some more story regarding the ultimate weapon and its relation to Zygarde, or perhaps all three of the Kalos legendaries. Another connection between AZ and the ultimate weapon is AZ's Floette, so perhaps we will be able to finally catch it, or at least interact with it. My theory is that AZ's Floette could take a similar role to Arceus in giving us our overarching quest of the game. Maybe not directly, but perhaps it could take on a role similar to Navi in Legends of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Speaking of Ocarina of Time, since this is a Legends game, it begs the question of when this game will take place. The debate between past and future, or possibly even traveling between both, is probably the largest topic of discussion surrounding this game. Now there are valid points for both sides, especially coming off of the tail end of the games featured around the theme of past and future. I'm not going to really dive into that too far, as the amazing Loxton has already made a fantastic video covering that line of discussion, so go check that out if you want to hear more on that. My personal theory is that this game will take place in the past, and that the next Legends game, if there is one, will be Legends Kyurem like some expected this game to be, and it will be set in the future. My theory stems from mainly the two rare Paradox Pokemon. Roaring Moon, as previously established, is a reference to Mega Salamence, and Iron Valiant could be a reference to a new mechanic in fusing Pokemon together, similarly to Kyurem fusing with Reshiram and Zekrom. I also think it's set in the past, and that the trailer could be a reference to the plan of what the urban redevelopment is intended to make Lumio City look like once it's done, which is to say how it looks in the X and Y games. As also stated in Loxton's video, again, watch if you haven't, the urban redevelopment is likely linked to the Haussmann's renovation of Paris between 1853 and 1870. With that being said, this more than likely is what the primary human-driven plot of this game will focus around. Whether past or future, we are going to be part of a redevelopment team of sorts, similarly to the Galactic Expedition team in PLA. As a part of this team, we will be redeveloping the city and, as the trailer states, making it a place for people and Pokemon to coexist. I see this as potentially a follow-up from us creating the first Pokédex and establishing initial connections between Pokémon and people in Legends Arceus, which to me means that at least some time has passed since PLA. As I just mentioned, the document in the trailer states a desire to bring about, quote, a beautiful coexistence between people and Pokémon. This can be interpreted a couple of ways for the sake of the conflict. I find the use of the word beautiful to be interesting here, as it's the same way that Lysander describes his ideal world in X and Y. So, this could be a slight nod at some relation to Lysander and the boss of this redevelopment team, or it could just be the boss having a secret agenda. Or it could be a red herring, and I'm reading into it too much. Only time will tell. The other key point of note for this redevelopment is the possible conflict that could arise from the people that aren't happy with the changes, or are being relocated as a result of the changes to the city. Or, more to the point of Pokemon, there could be rampaging Pokemon, similarly to the Alphas and Noble Pokemon of Legends Arceus, that impede the redevelopment efforts. While I don't think it's likely that Pokemon will tackle something as serious as homelessness head-on, they could surprise us again with that. I mean, AZ is dressed in a manner that is typically associated with homelessness. Long ragged hair, fingerless gloves, a torn ragged jacket, a ragged beanie, a scarf, arm and leg sleeves to indicate that he's cold, and a backpack that holds all of the belongings that he has. It could simply be part of the aesthetic of opposition to him being a king long ago, and now belonging to nowhere. Again, I could be reading into this too much, but it does follow along with the theming we have going so far. And with all that being said, it does play for a potential plotline to explain how the game can take place only within Lumio City. So I guess we'll talk about that next. The conversation for the setting of the game is continued beyond the time period and also includes its location. I simply look to two things to put this topic at ease for me. 1. Remember how big feeling Lumio City was originally in X and Y? There was plenty to explore despite having areas blocked off permanently, and the city realistically being small still for the sake of comparing it to the scale of a real-life city. Secondly, and for those of you that haven't played X and Y, there are plenty of examples of other games that take place in only one city, such as the Batman Arkham Knight series, GTA, Persona, Yakuza, etc. I have also seen worries about catching Pokemon too, if it's in a city setting, but again, the plot revolves around creating harmony with people and Pokemon within the city. I'm sure there will be plenty of wild Pokemon just running around, or in specific areas of the city, park areas, etc. There might even be more specific spawns, such as Klefki and houses. Maybe we'll go into the sewers, similarly to Gen 5, to find Pokemon like Grimer, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it's a Pokemon game. There will be Pokemon to catch somehow, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And again, if the game is in the past, it might not be entirely all city like it looks in the trailer, so there could be some underdeveloped areas where wild Pokemon thrive. Moving back to the theme of the game, there will probably be some kind of imbalance in the ecology of people and Pokemon as the city develops further, or some secret underlying plot with the redevelopment that brings about the need for Zygarde to intervene. With Zygarde's obvious inclusion, there are a couple other questions to ask. Will there be another Find All the Pieces mission for the Zygarde cells, like the 108 spirits in Legends Arceus, or the cells in Ultra Sun and Moon? And speaking of, maybe we'll get some answers as to why Zygarde was in those games to begin with, or more likely a slight nod to it, as I'm sure it was mainly due to lack of development time. That concludes my speculation and discussion points for the plot of the game, which means now we can talk about more of the fun stuff, starting with the fact that Mega Evolutions are returning. By far one of, if not the most discussed and beloved gimmicks of all time for the Pokemon community. Obviously, there are many Pokemon that can be included to the list of Pokemon that will be getting Megas, and there will be plenty returning. Just from the trailer, returning Pokemon with Megas include Gyarados, Absol, Pinsir, and Heracross. But really, returning Megas aren't as exciting as new Megas, and possibly even new regional forms or new evolutions for old Pokemon. The only Pokemon that come to mind for new forms or evolutions are Pokemon like Komala and Maractus, but I think they would be better off for remakes of their respective gens, so I'm not really making any predictions as of right now, but I'm sure they'll have some great ones coming. However, the possibilities are endless for Mega Evolutions. I have a few hopes myself. To go off of some fan favorites, and just for some of my own predictions, I'm going to say that Flygon did make its way back into the games with the Indigo Disc DLC, and just because Dunsparce got an evolution doesn't mean we can't transfer the wish for Mega Dunsparce to move to Mega Dunsparce. I'm also personally hoping for some Megas for either Scovillain, Tinkaton, or Satitan for Gen 9 Pokemon. And for Gen 6, since it's the home region, I'm going to say Pangoro, Heliolisk, Gogoat, Goodra, and Florges are some of my predictions. And for any previous generations, Milotic, Lantern, and Ariados, just to keep it brief. And obviously, hopes for Megas for the original Gen 6 starters. Speaking of starters, there's also the question of what Pokemon we are going to get as our starters for the game. If the trend continues and Legends games means a trio of old starters with new forms for final evolutions, I'm going to make two predictions. Prediction number 1 is Litten, Snivy, and Piplup. And prediction number 2 is Sobble, Tepig, and Chikorita. A couple other fun hopes I have for the game are some more new Pokeball styles, some tie-in to the mythical Pokemon again, and that we could get some story or plotline with them, customizable Mega accessories, and something similar to the Synchro Machine from the Indigo Disc DLC. I have a couple final fun finds and theories about the game that I'll run through quickly. As far as the game is concerned, keep in mind that in X and Y there are statues of Zekrom and Reshiram in the Palace Gardens, so there could still be ties into Unova, still to hint again at a Legends Kyurem in the future. Another keynote that was recently rediscovered is that X and Y hinted at the Synchro Machine's existence. A few other fun theories I saw were one from Twitter user Nintendo Kuso, which mentions Lumiose in the shape of an elemental pentagram, similarly to New Pokemon Snap's plotline, which also had Xerneas at the center of it all. And the regularly mentioned explorer of the Lental region, Vince, is a relative of AZ and Lysander. Another theory is from Twitter user Mordecai's Mons that mentions the connection of redevelopment being tied into Mauville City's redevelopment and ORAS, which had a model that featured Lumiose City. They also pointed out that Mauville means violet in French, where Lumiose is based, and with Pokemon Violet having a future theme, Legend ZA will be set in the future. I personally think this could also just be tied into the concept of Lumiose being a sort of city of the future for the Kalos region, but still a solid ground for the future argument. And finally, I found this theory by user Master Gaigyu that believes the hyphen could actually be a minus, and since the A appears to be the ultimate weapon, it could be showcasing a timeline without the ultimate weapon's existence. There are several other fun theories or ideas I've seen, but these three stood out to me as the most interesting. Another fun thing that myself and others noticed is that near the end of the trailer, you can see Fletchling flying towards the camera, similarly to the opening cutscene in X and Y, where Fletchling flies in your room to wake you up. Some have stated this may be a de-evolution mechanic in the game, or more past theming, since it starts off as a Talonflame flying through the city and then transitions into the Fletchling. But I think that's a bit of a stretch, personally. The most important thing to keep in mind is that anything could happen, and clearly Game Freak is capable of throwing us a curveball, so who knows? We'll just have to wait and see, but I'm super excited nonetheless to see where this will go. The game is set to release in 2025, and I couldn't be more excited. The release announcement also denotes releasing simultaneously, which hopefully means we'll be getting a Switch 2, possibly. The Switch is 7 years old, which is already a year or so over the average cycle of Nintendo consoles, but I'm still excited for the game regardless. Let me know what you thought of this video and share some of your thoughts in the comments section. If you liked this video or other Pokemon related content, please consider subscribing to the channel as it really helps me out. I'll be posting shiny hunts and some other informational Pokemon videos on this channel, and maybe make some more update style videos like this if things go well. I also stream shiny hunts at twitch.tv/ZionZenZ7, so you can stop by and hang out there too if you'd like to support me further. Link will be in the description. With all that said, always remember, tomorrow's another bright, shiny day.